In the YouTube algorithm, the people are represented by three separate yet equally important groups: the one that creates, the one that views, and the one that just can't help but react. Under Title 17, I am a member of an elite squad, also known as the Special Viewers Unit. These are the stories.
Hey guys, hey, how are you? How are you? Welcome to your first class experience on the Titanic. The year is 1912. I have some expensive champagne that I'm about to crack open. We're going to have a wonderful meal. So let's crack this baby open and follow me to D-Deck for some fine dining. Does anyone know who this is? I can totally do this because I'm first class and I know how to open champagne. I did it! I did it! Okay.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch. You did it.
Hey, I'm just here in the pre-dinner lounge enjoying a punch romaine. And I think dinner should be arriving anytime now. Here we have...
Madam.
Thank you, Jeeves. Oh, okay. Yum, okay. Oh, wow. Look at that. Thank you, Jeeves. Thank you. Wow.
I'll check back later for the dessert.
Thank you.
I am French now. I was British before, but now I am French. Oh.
You won't be getting a good tip. Now, this is my costume. I ordered this heart of the ocean thinking it would be bigger. It actually is really small. But anyways, that or my husband's
Maybe it's just your tits are too big.
Get out of here. Go to your quarters, servant.
It shines, it glimmers, it's scintillating, but also its provenance. It has an extraordinary history.
There were so many twists and turns and dramatic events and horrible deaths along the way.
Here are the centuries-old facts and fictions, myths and mayhem brought upon its owners. Kings and queens and in-betweens.
Well, we want to believe in curses. Everybody likes a good conspiracy or a mystery to unravel.
The diamond has captured the public's imagination, drawing more than 7 million visitors a year to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History.
Passing from India to France to England to America. It's an extraordinary gem and a great story.
Kim Basinger narrates Mystery of the Hope Diamond.
How incredibly rude. My fiance is just too cheap and, you know. Some of you may know a lot about the Titanic. The things that are more commonly known about the Titanic, we know that she sank during her maiden voyage on April 15th, 1912. Over 1,500 people perished in the sinking of the ship. It was a very, very tragic story. It's been romanticized so many times. James Cameron, and I'm dressed up as a fictional character, Rose Dawson. Yes, because I can't remember her other real last name. It was long. We all know that the Titanic hit an iceberg on the way from Southampton to New York City. Had over 2,200 people on board and a lot of very, very wealthy people, a lot of very rich people, such as the unsinkable Molly Brown, who was the nouvelle riche, had a lot of nouvelle riche with the Industrial Revolution, brought about a lot of money and wealth during the Edwardian time, and because of King Edward, and it's just a very opulent, very luxurious time, and so a lot of people were wanting to spend their money, and the Titanic was a way to spend that money, because you could, for thousands of dollars for a first class ticket, you would be living the life of luxury.
It is no surprise then that the 11-course dinner served on the evening before the Titanic sank was one for the ages. So put on your best white tie and tails or your most elegant beaded evening gown. Saunter down the grand staircase and take your seat next to John Jacob Astor or the unsinkable Molly Brown, as we enjoy the lavish meal served to first-class diners on the Titanic's final night above the waves.
It was the symbol of luxury at the time. Even those in the second and third classes were living pretty well on that trip, even if you had a second or third class, you were doing pretty well on the Titanic. You know, eating roast beef and boiled vegetables, and just, you know, it was great. It was pretty luxurious for second and third class. So I'm going to be eating, I made a couple dishes from the first class, because what I didn't realize is how kind of complicated it was to make items from the menu. And this seemed to be the easiest one, because a lot of the dishes were French cuisine inspired by a very famous chef, Auguste Escoffier, and he's the one who came up with this whole shaved ice, alcohol over shaved ice, and this is a punch romaine, and it is just absolutely delicious.
6th course, punch romaine. This was a palate cleanser after the heavier courses. This custom was championed by Escoffier to help diners make it through the marathon meal. Punch romaine consisted of shaved ice with simple syrup, champagne, white rum, and fresh squeezed orange and lemon juice, served with a citrus twist. Ah, refreshing.
But I'm having it now. I actually didn't think I could ever make this. Shaking the egg whites, zesting the fruit, shaving the ice, which you can just do in your blender, which I didn't know. But so these are called chateau potatoes, a cooked dish from the first class menu that I saw from the menu on the last day of the Titanic. I think it was, yeah, the 14th.
You're supposed to peel them, but these are too small to peel, so I left it on. These are small yellow potatoes, but the idea with chateau potatoes is to cook these potatoes in lots of butter. So you're going to need the potatoes and about half a stick of butter. I forgot to get some footage of what the potatoes looked coming out of the oven, but my oven is preheated to 400 degree oven until they're brown and crispy.
Yet another expensive and tender cut was served with chateau potatoes, which were cut into oval shapes to look like jewels, and roasted with fresh parsley and copious quantities of butter.
So as you can see, the idea behind them is to get them nice and brown and buttery. Everything was very rich in French cuisine, and everything was very decadent. So cooking them in the butter instead of roasting them like I usually roast them in olive oil gives it such a different flavor. Oh man, that is really, really good. I'm trying to be a lady, not pig out. Wow. Chicken sauté à la lyonnaise. À la lyonnaise means with onions in a sauce, mostly a wine sauce. This is a wine tomato onion sauce.
So you're going to cut up some large chicken breasts into pieces, salt and pepper on them. Then you're going to put them in one egg that I have beaten, and you're going to dredge soak the chicken breast, I guess, in the egg mixture.
So the recipe calls for 1/3 cup of flour with some thyme and salt. I didn't have any thyme at my grocery store, I guess was out, so I put some Old Bay seasoning. Now you can substitute with an herb of your choice.
After you've coated the chicken pieces, and fry them over medium heat until they're golden brown on both sides. That's the color you're looking for. While the chicken's in the oven, you're going to use the same pan, add a couple more tablespoons of olive oil, 1 large thinly sliced onion, and 2 diced cloves of garlic.
Now I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of wine. I'm using my champagne because that's all I had on hand, but you can use any wine of your choice.
Alright, now I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of tomato paste. And now I'm adding 1.5 cups of chicken stock and a little less than a teaspoon of white sugar. And I'm going to let this thicken up and reduce. So I've added the chicken pieces back into the sauce, and I'm just going to let that cook for another few minutes until the chicken is no longer pink on the inside.
Sauté of chicken lyonnaise could be selected. This classic French dish was an Escoffier recipe. Sautéed chicken breast served with caramelized onions and a white wine and tomato sauce.
Let's try a piece here. Oh wow. Man, they were eating good on the Titanic. Oh wow. Oh wow. I have to make this for like company. And you're supposed to have like a decorative orange peel. I don't know how to do that. So if you were lucky enough to be in first class, you had, of course, on the Titanic, the creme de la creme of fine dining. You still ate well in second and third, like I said, but it was more basic. The first class was so luxurious. You had cigar rooms, you had different restaurants on different decks, and dining would take hours sometimes, and there was like 11 courses in first class. It seems like all they would do is eat and drink. So a sample menu here would be, they would start with like hors d'oeuvres. Oysters, fresh oysters were very popular. Caviar, canapes.
A glass of champagne launched the meal, along with canapé à la morale, shrimp butter on toast topped with a butter-poached shrimp and a dollop of caviar. Caviar, salt-cured sturgeon eggs, is one of the oldest delicacies in the world. The hors d'oeuvres course also included oysters. This saltwater shellfish has been a common food since ancient humans first reached the coast.
Roasted potatoes, jacket potatoes. Foie gras was very popular. Filet mignon, foie gras, filet mignon lily. This chicken was on there, these potatoes. Desserts were different fruits, fresh fruits and cheeses, and chocolate eclairs with cream inside. And I did visit a French bakery, so that's gonna come next. Even the champagne I bought, I was gonna get like a bottle of like Spumante Bambino, but I was like, I'm gonna splurge. It was like 50 bucks for that little bottle of champagne, and it actually is like so good. I feel like I'm in first class. All I need is a lover from third class.
The ship will sink.
Certain?
Yes.
What would you guys pick? Like, sometimes I'm like, when I watch the movie The Titanic, and she has that husband of hers who's really an ass, but he gives her this huge diamond, and then you have poor old Jack. Would you take good sex over the biggest, most valuable diamond in the world? I mean, her fiance wasn't bad looking. He had weird eyebrows. No one can beat Leo, especially in the 90s. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a history buff. I wanted to focus more on the food and just kind of recreate what they ate for a mukbang. I know some people were interested in conspiracy theories around the Titanic. I'm not really interested in conspiracy theories, honestly, as a whole. But apparently there was a sister ship to the Titanic called the Olympic. So the photos I show you, there's only one photo that that exists of the actual Titanic dining area. The rest are from the Olympic. However, both ships were pretty much identical in style, architecture style. Very neoclassical. They had pillars. It was just very, very decked out and very fancy. They had like pillars with the head of Neptune, and Ceres, the goddess of agriculture, and Neptune, of course, the god of the sea. That's such a good drink, man. And I'm not like a huge drinker because I generally don't much like alcohol as a whole, but I do like good drinks that are well made. That mixology kit will come in handy for like parties or company or myself. I need to do more French cuisine. French onion soup, coquille Saint-Jacques. I would love to dine like that. Like, just, I haven't been to that fancy of a restaurant where they serve like that many courses. I would love to someday. So yeah, there would be, if we were really in first class, there would be so many more courses than this. And I bet you the portions would be rather small so that you can eat them all. And then after dinner, the men would have brandy and cigars in another room, the smoke room. Women probably gossiped.
Cheese course. As a traditional end to French dinners, a course of cheese, fresh fruit, and jam was served. The final course of the night was delivered around 11:30 p.m., and diners would often linger over it, enjoying conversation and drinks well into the night. Cheeses served on the last night of the Titanic include Emmental, more commonly known as Swiss cheese, Edam, a semi-hard cheese from the Netherlands, and Stilton, a strong-flavored English blue cheese.
Oh, waiter! I'm finished my meal, and I would like my dessert, please.
Certainly, madam. I'm back to being British now, if you were wondering. This comes highly recommended from the chef.
Ooh, those...
Which is you.
What are they?
Because this is a bit.
What are these? Chocolate eclairs.
Chocolate eclairs!
Excuse me.
Well done, madam.
It was Jack.
Jolly good.
It was Jack.
Jolly good show, madam.
Get out of here, Jeeves. So, like I said, I got these from a French bakery. Oh my god, that bakery was beautiful. Don't worry. These are low in calorie. How else do you think I wear my corset? When I watch footage of them exploring the wreck of the Titanic, I mean, they go inside the vessel and there's the remnants of the grand staircase, and you see the china, the fine china, you see the fancy fireplace, you see the fancy paneling on the walls, and just to think that it just seems so surreal, does it not? Just as all that remains is this ghost of shattered dreams. It was such a dream back in the day. I mean, you know, the Titanic carried tons of Irish immigrants, immigrants from Scandinavia, Great Britain, and you know, it's the ship of dreams. She was traveling to New York. A lot of people wanted to make it in America, and you know, the Titanic was carrying a lot of these people. That's why they called it the ship of dreams. And those who were newly wealthy or the richest people, you could express that as being in first class, and you know, it's just so tragic. And you know, when I would hear them say things like the ship is unsinkable, they were pretty cocky, to the point of them not even having, like, only having what, 20 lifeboats on board, and not even having enough for all of the, I think the lifeboats could carry up to 1,200 passengers, and there was like double that. So that's pretty cocky, you know, and you're just asking for tragedy. You know, Murphy's Law, if something bad can happen, it will, especially if you jinx it like that. And sure enough, it did happen. It's just really too bad and really sad. It's like really messed up. You see like boots underwater, and you just picture like how it was in 1912. They didn't have very much time to enjoy the trip. I mean, I think they set sail on April 10th, 1912, and the ship hit the iceberg at 11:40 on the 14th. And then everything, all of that wealth, all of that fancy decor, the grand staircase, the dining rooms, everything, the fine china, everything was underwater like 2.5 hours later at the bottom of the Atlantic. And it's just crazy when you really think about it, you know?
So he put his very thick coat on her and put another one on himself. And without any words at all, we went out of the cabin and into the lift and up onto the boat deck. Now, if we hadn't done that at that time, I very much doubt I'd be talking to you today, because, as you know, there was accommodation for less than 800 people in the lifeboats, and she was carrying 2,200. So it was a question as who was there in time to get into one of the all too few lifeboats. Well, they weren't launched very quickly, because at first no one thought anything was going to happen. But my father went away and spoke to an officer, and he said, they are going to launch the lifeboats, but you'll all be back on board for breakfast. There wasn't any panic until the lifeboats left, and then there was panic galore. We were down on the ocean. We could hear them running about on the decks and screaming. You can imagine people came up from their cabin, went onto the deck, no lifeboat, tearing around the other side. That's when the panic was there. There wasn't any panic at the time I got in the lifeboat because there weren't enough people up there. And there were enough people there to just get into the lifeboats. But after that, when the others started coming up from their cabins and there were no boats, gosh, there was panic. We could hear it. Definitely.
As each lifeboat reached the water, it moved away from the ship, for fear of the suction should she sink. Some rowed towards the lights of a ship which could be seen just a few miles away. But this ship was never identified and never reached.
And of course, there are still threats of legal things even these days about whether the ship that was so close to us was the Californian or not. I mean, I saw that ship. It's terribly close. And the other thing I'm saying is that I didn't see a ship 19 miles away. I saw a ship that was so close, and they said at the time it was less than 9 miles away. Now they're trying to say it was 19. I saw it, you know, it wasn't just lights on the horizon, you could see it was a ship. And I saw our rockets being fired, which that ship must have seen. Well, this inquiry says that they did see it, but they didn't think it was a portent of danger. But I would have thought in the middle of the Atlantic, in the middle of the night, that rockets must mean trouble.
I don't know. It's really tragic. But this was really fun, just even getting to kind of relive how they were eating and for that time. And that meal was really delicious. Like, I was surprised at how it turned out, actually. So, but everything was just cooked so rich. You know, like they had this dish that was like salmon with mousseline sauce, and the mousseline sauce is like this rich hollandaise sauce with heavy cream whipped into it. And you poach the salmon in this really delicious broth, and it's just this like really decadent French dish. I know I say decadent a lot, but that's like the best word I can think of to describe French cuisine, especially back then. And it was just a very very prominent display of your wealth. You know, you can afford to eat these lavish dishes. And
Fresh salmon was poached in basic court bouillon made of white wine and aromatics. It was served with thinly sliced English cucumbers, sprigs of fresh dill, and a rich and creamy mousseline sauce made of butter, egg yolk, lemon, and cream.
you know what would be a fun timepiece to do is like Marie Antoinette. this video's time period is going to be the Roaring 20s. A nice meal prepared by me, inspired by the 1920s. This has turned out, look at this. I mean, this is indeed a prosperity sandwich. Now this flopper has a lot of dancing to do tonight. I gotta do Charleston all over the dance hall. And then I'm gonna go down to the speakeasy and have a few drinks.
By far, the biggest unintended consequence of Prohibition was the rise of the speakeasy. A speakeasy was an illegal bar during the Prohibition era. The establishments were known by this name because those who knew of one's existence were supposed to speak easy or stay quiet about its location. A speakeasy was typically located in the attic, basement, or back room of another legitimate business. Cafes, soda shops, flower shops, and funeral homes were all known to have housed speakeasies. To enter the speakeasy, one might have to be familiar with a special knock or a secret password.
Now, so what we have here to drink, first of all, it would not be the Roaring 20s without some kind of alcohol beverage. Now this is not the highest quality gin for this gin and tonic with fresh lime, but it is a typical drink for the 20s. You know, they had the Prohibition, so a lot of the, and for those of you who don't know, of course, Prohibition is a constitutional ban on alcohol. So whenever you take somebody's alcohol away, they just make more. And unfortunately, a lot of it was cheap, you know, whiskey and gin.
Even though alcohol was illegal, it was still finding its way into the public's hands. There were many different sources for the unlawful drinks. In some cases, the alcohol was being produced independently. Beverages such as wine could still be produced in small quantities by each household if the person producing it was not intending to sell it. Some breweries were still open and in business, despite the fact that beer was illegal. These breweries were producing a drink known as near beer, which had extremely low alcohol content and was legal. Many of these breweries were also still producing real beer without the government's knowledge. Medicinal alcohol was also still legal. Therefore, the sale of medicines, elixirs, and tonics increased significantly throughout the Prohibition era. However, most illegal alcohol was arriving in the United States from other countries. Even though alcohol was illegal in the United States, it was not illegal in Canada, Mexico, or the islands in the Caribbean Sea. This alcohol would make its way into the U.S. with the help of bootleggers. Bootlegger is a general term used for anyone who was smuggling alcohol illegally. The term is derived from the notion that a bottle or flask of alcohol would be concealed inside a boot, and thus hidden from the authorities. Most bootleggers would smuggle alcohol from Canada across the border into the U.S. However, there were also many bootleggers bringing in rum and other beverages from Jamaica and other Caribbean islands.
The prosperity sandwich is a spin. This version, there's a few different versions, but this version, from what I gather, is a variety of. It's a different take on the brown sandwich. I think it's called the hot brown, from the Brown Hotel in the 1920s, and people would, you know, the Brown Hotel was really popular in the 20s, and they would be partying all night, and instead of having like eggs and toast or whatever, they wanted something different, and of course something more decadent for their guests. So they invented this sandwich, the hot brown, and it's from Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville's Brown Hotel prides itself as one of the finest hotels in the South. Its beautiful English Renaissance interior has drawn visitors since opening in 1923. In fact, it was the late-night crowds hungry from dancing who demanded an alternative to the usual ham and eggs available in the kitchen. As a solution, Chef Fred Schmidt created an open-faced sandwich called the Hot Brown, and it has been satisfying guests ever since.
Basic ingredients for our hot brown. We start with a really great piece of turkey breast. We oven roast the turkey breast. Use some really great thick cut bacon. We like a hickory smoked bacon with our hot brown. Some good meaty tomatoes. We're going to cut those up here in a little bit into quarters. Originally it was served on white bread, but we've gone the route of a Texas toast style bread. It's a little bit thicker cut, a little bit sweeter in flavor. And then we use a nice bechamel turned into a Mornay, use a little heavy cream in that Mornay sauce with some nice sharp pecorino cheese. Finish off with some fresh parsley, some more pecorino, and a little smoked paprika.
But this version, apparently, prosperity sandwich, comes from St. Louis. That crunch on the bread from when we boiled it. Oh man. This is one heck of a decadent sandwich. Very rich, that sauce. And it, you know, it's also a sandwich that showcases the prosperity of the times of the Roaring 20s. Because it is so rich and decadent, and cheese and meat are not cheap. You know, whenever I talk about prosperity, this is focusing on the Western world, and of course it's not equal for all classes in any decade. So I'm just speaking of the time period that we all know. Of course, there's a lot of social change and social turmoil and a lot of things going on. And one of those things was a change in women's role in society. In the 20s, they were finally allowed to vote. And in a way to celebrate and express that newfound freedom as women, and breaking away from that more Victorian, ultra-conservative role of women, the flapper, the modern woman of the 1920s, emerged. And she expressed herself as a more sexual being, less sexually conservative, and wore a lot of makeup, a lot of jewelry, decadent jewelry, low-cut dresses that usually went just below the knee so that their limbs were exposed. And, you know, because Victorian, look at the Victorian era dresses, women were covered head to toe, you know, so. And on top of that, they were dancing, going out and partying all night. They weren't just staying in the home, caring, you know, for their families. A lot of women still were, but the lines were blurred for the role of women in the 20s.
Women's lives were changing fast. In 1920, the 19th Amendment had guaranteed women the right to vote. More women than ever before held paying jobs.
In the 1920s, young women in particular enjoyed more freedom than young women had ever had before. Women were going to high school in increasing numbers, and many of them were graduating from high school. Women were also going to college in increasing numbers, and they were going to coeducational colleges. They were living away from their families. They were dating. They were engaged in sports activities to an extent that women had never been engaged in sports activities before. They were increasingly throwing off the restraints of an earlier generation. They wore looser clothing instead of being tightly constrained by corsets the way women had been constrained in the 19th century. They cut their hair, they went to speakeasies, they drank bathtub gin, and this is the image we have of the 1920s. We call these young women the flappers.
So the 1920s were a very, I mean, you had the emergence of the jazz age, and you had new dances. You know, people were dancing and swing jazz were very popular. The Charleston, the foxtrot, the waltz. Just after World War I ended, and the end of World War I brought a huge amount of prosperity to the United States. The economy was at an all-time high. People were loving life. People were celebrating, moving pictures, radio, new technologies. I mean, there was a ton of different food. Available in the 20s. This one looked and sounded the most appealing to me. I mean, with a name like Prosperity Sandwich, right? Cheers. I'll see you for dessert.
My last week I got on Ben. She laid on me for a little bit, and she seemed to be getting a bit better.
That's good. Sorry, Pete.
That's not good. You. Goddamn pig.
Flopper pig?
It's the 1920s, okay? Women are allowed to burp. This is a icebox cake. Pretty easy, but it's just chocolate wafers. You know those crispy chocolate wafers, kind of like Oreo. It looks almost like an Oreo cake. And then you have whipped cream. You just stack it with whipped cream in between, and then you cover it in cream, and these are chocolate shavings. And you just stick it in the fridge overnight, and you have yourself this icebox cake. So let's try this. You want to try a bite, Pete?
No thanks.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. That?
So it's good?
Oh. It is. Oh my god. The thing about why this was so popular, such a popular recipe, is because in the mid-1920s, the first Frigidaire came out, and they were trying to get people to use it, new appliances. And so this is an icebox cake because you put it in the fridge, right, for it to set. You don't bake it like a traditional dessert. Also, it is very reminiscent of Oreos and uses packaged cookies, uses packaged wafers, uses packaged food. And in the 1920s, that was the time where processed food started to emerge slowly. Things like Oreos, the Baby Ruth chocolate bar came out, biscuits, crackers, and a lot more tinned and frozen food emerged, mostly because of World War I and the soldiers having access to convenient packaged foods. One more bite and then this flapper is heading home from the speakeasy. Okay guys, I'm going to smoke my imaginary cigarette now, and probably pass out in a food coma. Seriously. Oh man, that was like a really rich, decadent meal, and wow. So, oh, I didn't wear the gloves because they're cutting off my circulation. So. Oh my god!
What of you, Betty? What's your ambition?
I want to be a famous
YouTuber. A musician, an actress. Anyone in the public eye must have fine appearance in addition to talent. And beauty and excellent appearance result from good health, Betty. Good nutrition, plenty of sleep, and exercise are basic to health.
Today, I have something special for you guys. I've been slaving away in the kitchen like a 1950s housewife, and we're gonna go back in time to the 50s and eat like they did in the 1950s. And the 1950s, I guess it's gonna be kind of stereotype kind of video because, you know, stereotypically you would hear that they have a well-balanced meal, you know, glass of milk, a slice of dessert, and, you know, meatloaf or whatever. So I'm going to show you what a typical 50s meal would be like, or what we imagine it to be.
I'll get it, Mom.
Thanks.
This afternoon? Oh, that's a wonderful idea. What time? Okay, bye.
Alright guys, so I'm going to do my best to do it justice. I baked a cake from the box. Betty Crocker, though, who I think was a 1950s housewife, if I'm not mistaken.
She's right. I'm Betty Crocker, and I promise you a perfect cake every time you bake. That's right, perfect. You be the judge. Or write General Mills, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and get your money back. Remember, I guarantee a perfect cake every time you bake, cake after cake after cake.
And you don't have to bother with fancy icings for any Betty Crocker cake. Who would ask for anything better than chocolate cake and vanilla ice cream with chocolate sauce? Or white cake and chocolate ice cream with marshmallow topping right out of a jar?
Hey guys, hey, how are you? Just by Googling, like researching or whatever, what a kind of a typical meal was. I've seen some videos where, you know, they have like a little salad, probably not drenched in creamy cucumber dressing, but hey. And I'm sure the portions were a lot smaller for the women. I'm sure this is like a husband size. So, but I wear the pants in this family, babe. No.
I almost went to the door. I'm wearing
no pants. I'm in my undies. Almost went to the door like this to get the food. And then I'm like, I better let Pete get this one.
All right, sorry. I'm trying to act proper. So this is 2 slices of meatloaf, peas, which I don't even like, and some fluffy mashed potatoes with rich brown gravy, slice of confetti cake for dessert with French vanilla icing, and a glass of milk, because they always seem to drink milk. They think that very big on getting your calcium so you can grow up strong and join the army. A big part of me misses that whole, like, wishes I could go back. I'm nostalgic for a time I wasn't even born in, but, you know, everyone had a function. Mothers took care of the family. Dads provided for the family. Everyone ate together. Let's try the peas with the potatoes. Times just seemed simpler somehow back then, you know, for the domestic life. But everyone seemed to just be playing a role, you know? And I think that's why times have changed, because you know, the housewife, we learned more about her as the years went on, and she started to rebel, and she wasn't so happy with her life. Having to freshen up and look good for the husband.
That's, you know, we do boyfriend, girlfriend shit. Fart on each other. We have actually farted on each other. I find that funny. He farted on my cat one time. It's not very nice.
You know, just basically just being a robot. You know, just every day, same routine, taking care of the house, kids, and husband. No time to take care of herself. Well, I wonder how true that is, you know? They look conservative on the outside.
But how many housewives do you think were wearing crotchless undies under those
skirts? For the milk boy! That would totally be me. Oh, it's lunch hour. Look at the milkman. The Eggman's here. The pool boy. If this were the 50s, I'd be having story times like my milkman lover.
Jenny thinks that she has the key to popularity, parking in cars with the boys at night. When Jerry brags about taking Ginny out, he learns that she dates all the boys. What about Ginny? Does that make her really popular? Do the boys and girls like her? Is she welcome to join this group?
Hi, Betty, Ellie. You can rest your tray here, Ginny, for a minute. Thanks. Say, Wally, how's the play coming along?
Oh, okay, Jenny. Here, Jenny.
No,
Thanks,
girls
Jerry.
who park in cars are not really popular. Not even with the boys they park with. Not when they meet at school or elsewhere.
Nothing like being Miss Popularity. Yeah.
And I just hope the husbands in the 50s showed some kind of recognition for the hard work that their wives did, but I don't think they did. I got gravy on my shirt. Better take it up to the sewing room.
Need more gravy.
But I love gravy. Oh my god, this is so good. Yeah, I would not survive in the 50s as a housewife. For sure. Isn't it like forbidden for women to like acknowledge that they have bodily functions? Like if you fart in front of your husband, you get served with divorce papers? I don't know. Fat phobia was even worse back then.
Fat phobia was even worse back then.
Weight reduction through diet. Sensible weight reduction takes time. Progress is measured in weeks or months, not days. It's a great day when the scales at last seem to shout success. When normal weight returns, along with a new and attractive figure, and new interests and activities. The diet is adjusted to maintain that desirable weight. 64 pounds gone in 7 months. With the return of normal weight come renewed pride in personal appearance, new self-confidence, increased vitality, and better health. One of these men has lost 30 pounds, the other 21 pounds since we saw them about 4 months ago. This controlled experiment, then, has given us one answer to the problem of overweight for young and old alike. A tested program of sensible weight reduction through diet.
The principle of weight reduction you have seen demonstrated can be applied effectively by others with excess weight, with, of course, the guidance of a physician. We have shown that a dietary plan for weight reduction can be simple, satisfy the appetite, and bring results in loss of unwanted pounds, in renewed vitality and health, and in eating habits which can be easily adjusted to maintain normal weight.
Yeah, the cake is... I'll just put a piece of cake for my video, but it's still cooling off, kind of. I have to ice it. Excuse me.
Pig.
You're gonna say hi to the people?
Hi, people. I apologize for her.
I'm acting like a 50's housewife today. How they ate.
Oh, and did 50's housewives belch words?
If they do, they get divorce papers. Right?
Unless their husbands are cool. But no husbands were cool in the 50's.
If you don't eat all your food, you can't have any pudding. Yummy.
Yummy. Yummy.
Yummy, yummy. And a glass of milk. Oh yes, angels sing. Hark the early angels sing. Thank you for joining me for dinner, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.
In all society, at all ages, we know that people are going to talk about other people. Unfortunately, our faults are often more discussed than our good points. And sometimes our good points are completely hidden by our faults. But perhaps worst of all is our own disappointment in ourselves.
Hey guys, what's up, what's up? Welcome to 1969. Fondue was very big in the 60s and the 70s. So let's revisit 1969 together. Let's get groovy and let's eat, let's get to. So I'm gonna show you guys how to make a traditional Swiss fondue. Because fondue originated, it's a Swiss dish and it goes back centuries. But it became popular in the United States. This is all for dipping, by the way. In the 60s and 70s, people were having these fondue parties. So it became popularized in that era, and that's why we're having a fondue party today. I don't have pot brownies. That would have been a good, of course, for this. Probably more like acid brownies for this time period, honestly. But we'll get into some chat. So while this is cooking, 1969, I chose that year because it kind of, I mean, it almost defines the decade, really. You had the whole hippie counterculture movement. Some great music came out, like some great songs. That song by the Zombies, Time of the Season, it's the one that's like, it's the time of the season when love runs high. In this time, give it to me easy and let me try with pleasure hands. And my favorite song ever, classic Space Oddity by David Bowie. This is ground control to Major Tom. You really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. And it's time to leave the capsule if you dare.
Well, love,
All right. All these cheeses, Swiss cheeses. Feeling groovy. I'm feeling groovy. I don't know about you guys. Let's try it. Get right out. Get right out. Shh, I say shh and get right out.
What was she talking about?
Oh my god, that flavor. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. Look at this velvety cheese. I'm gonna try the bread. Soft. It might fall off. It's so soft and fresh. All right. Oh my god, this is gonna be hot. Too hot. Should have made smaller pieces.
Now I am 100% authentic Swiss. This is my Swiss passport, and I wanted to kind of just show you how my family has been making fondue for years. Next I'm going to make the bread cubes, which you're going to need for dipping up the cheese in the cheese fondue. So what I like to get is a really nice kind of country bread with a nice crust on it. Don't use like toast or stuff like that. You want something that's a little bit more of a solid type of bread. And what you're going to do is you're just going to cut bite-sized cubes out of that. So you don't want to cut it too thin, but not too big either, because the problem is if you cut it too thin, then sometimes the bread falls apart like that. So they should be about this big. So I've got my bread cubes.
This is all for dipping. I forgot my napkins over there, but I'm not going to get them. I'm too tipsy. Oh my god. Oh my god. 1969, so such a huge year. You had the Apollo 11 moon landing, Neil Armstrong landing, first moonwalk ever. I know some people conspired that the moon landing never happened. I think it did.
Wow, that's a big step. What's that? Oh, it's windy. What's that saying? That's a big step for mankind. That fake Neil Armstrong crap. Look how big that step is. I don't think I can step it. Anyways. One small step for man, one giant leap for man. Yeah, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Y'all know moon landing ain't real. Shh. Anyways.
Okay, I just checked. Getting back up to that first step. That hasn't collapsed too far.
Neil went down first, and he did things. I could see him through the window. He had no trouble at all, just moving around.
Giant leap for mankind. Here, men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD.
Walking was relatively easy.
Some way, when those two Americans stepped on the moon, the people of this world were brought closer together. That it is that spirit, the spirit of Apollo, that America can now help to bring to our relations with other nations. The spirit of Apollo transcends geographical barriers and political differences. It can bring the people of the world together in peace.
Apollo 11, not Apollo 13, like the Tom Hanks movie. So you had that. You had James Earl Ray getting sentenced to 99 years in prison for the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968. So you had something tragic happen in the summer of '69. The Manson family murders happened. The murder, devastating murder of Sharon Tate. She was married to Roman Polanski at the time, and he was away on business. A few other people were murdered as well. I think Abigail Folger Harris to the Folgers Coffee Company was murdered. That just like shocked the nation.
Rona Barrett showed up, and I wondered what was she doing there, because she did a gossip segment on Eyewitness News at the time. Miss Rona, what are you doing here? And she said, don't you know who lives here? This is Roman Polanski's house. And then it was just like a collective shock. We knew we were in a story that was a lot bigger than we thought.
Wyman recalls standing at that gate all day. The details began trickling out. 5 dead, including Sharon Tate, pregnant wife of Roman Polanski. Even more shocking, how they were killed, brutally shot or stabbed. 169 stab wounds between the 5. The next night in Silver Lake, Rosemary and Lino LaBianca, random, horribly unlucky victims, killed almost the same brutal way.
Believe me, if I started people, there'd be none of you left.
So you had that happen. You had Woodstock, peace and love, right? You had the hippie movement, Flower Child. You had this movement of people who were just protesting. You had right smack in the middle of the Vietnam War, a war that claimed so many lives and lasted a long time. I think it started, in the 50s and lasted till the mid-70s, if I'm not mistaken. You know, hippies were peacefully protesting. Well, they were protesting protesting the war. A lot of other social unrest going on. They were counterculture, anti-establishment, free sexually, like freer sexuality. That's why there were so many boobs at Woodstock. But yeah, Woodstock, I was gonna make most were vegetarian apparently, hippies. But Woodstock was like an atrocity environmental-wise. There was so much pollution and filth. Kind of like counteracts that whole environmentalist, like hippie culture kind of thing, you know? People were buying like acid for $1. Now, that might have been CIA agents selling it, because there was the whole MK Ultra operation going on, like the covert CIA operation where they were giving people acid, like without them knowing, so they could test some kind of like the psychological effect for like warfare and like psychological warfare probably, or something like that.
Millions of dollars would be spent on LSD research at universities throughout the country. And word would begin to spread on campus about this so-called mind-blowing drug. And suddenly, there was the counterculture of the 60s.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
I never did that. I have no interest in doing that kind of thing. It was a psychedelic era. You had psychedelic music, like the music in my intro. The Doors, very psychedelic rock. And a lot of artists would drop acid or take hallucinogenic drugs in order to, they said it opened their mind to let more creativity flow.
All I could see was an ocean of flesh and hair and teeth, and the cheering was like, you know, combined like a bunch of Super Bowls and World Cups and baseballs, and you don't hear that sound of 100 people like screaming at the same time. The biggest door I ever walked through, other than the supernatural experience. It's like a little strange that a few years back, maybe a year and a half, I was in Mission High School, and now I'm playing with same stage with Sly and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and all these incredible mega superstars already. I remember that I was under the influence of LSD, and then it all came back to me like, damn, why did I take LSD before I went on? The guitar neck, it felt like a electric snake that wouldn't stand still. That's why I'm making ugly faces, trying to make the snake stand still so I can like play it, because it's going like this. The neck is going like that, and I'm like, and inwardly I remember saying over and over, God, I'll never do this again, ever, if you can just keep me in time and in tune. That's all I asked. That was my first mantra. God, please, I promise I'll never do this again. I'll never take this thing again. Just, and then the sound of hearing the music coming from within me, through my body, through my fingers, through the amplifier, to the speakers, up into the audience, as far as you can go, and then come back to you. It was a scary thing. I thought we were going to go on like 12 hours later, so that I would be cool, and it was like, okay, now, I already drink a lot of water, I pee it out, now I can do this, and I'm not, everything's not so amoeba, liquidy, all discombobulated, I don't recommend it for anybody, to go on stage high on LSD trying to perform or present your music. But by God's grace, the performance that they got from Soul Sacrifice was very electric.
A really memorable year, especially, with everything that I just talked about going on. I think those were the main memorable things that happened that year. A lot happened in that year. Feel free to mention anything else you think of.
Don't mind if I do!
Actually, off this new album called Abbey Road, which is where they record all their stuff in a studio in Abbey Road, you see, just north of London. And I went along there with my tape recorder, and I opened the door, and I say, oh, at the moment, what are you devoting energy to, Johnny?
At the moment, I'm devoting most of my energy to the Beatles LP forthcoming.
Have you decided a title for it?
Yeah. Yes, Abbey Road, it is called.
Is it?
Abbey Road, but Beatles.
Man, Woodstock, 2 people died. But part of me would have wanted to go because look at the lineup. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Grateful Dead. So many icons. That would have been an awesome concert. You get to see those icons before they join the 27 Club.
What do you hope it would do to its audience?
I hope it'll leave them puzzled.
May I light your fire, my child?
That's my favorite singer, as you know. I guess not.
Apparently not, no. Well, I would have bet against it myself.
Would be amazing. Oh. Let this cool off. Burnt my lip earlier. Excuse me. Boy, you've got to prove your love to me, yeah.
Uh-oh, don't look.
Foodie beauty.
Where?
We can dance if we want to. We can leave your friends behind. 'Cause your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine.
Oh God, I made eye contact.
If you haven't noticed already, I'm doing an 80s video. I have my little bow in my hair, but you can't really see it. So these are bagel bites. All right. Now, I'm not saying people only ate processed crap in the 80s, but people were eating more. And as you see, unfortunately, with the time pieces I do, there's going to be more and more processed food because as the years went on, that's what happened. More processed food came out. And now, if let's say I did a modern time, like right now, I would probably do some health foods because a lot of vegan foods have come out, like Beyond Meat burgers or something like that. So I'm trying to do foods that are really with the time period.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Rice, raw fish, and seaweed.
You won't accept a guy's tongue in your mouth and you're gonna eat that?
Can I eat?
I don't know. Give it a try.
Whole low-fat fad was going on at the same time, juxtaposing to there being a rise in microwave foods and things like SpaghettiOs and bagel bites and Cool Ranch Doritos. And to wash it all down, another thing that came out in the 80s was Diet Coke.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world premiere of a great new soft drink, the world premiere of Diet Coke.
Introducing Diet Coke. You're gonna drink it just for the taste of it. Introducing Diet Coke. This is the one from Coca-Cola. Pickle the taste with just 1 calorie.
Just for the taste of it.
Diet Coke.
So, and these are foods I remember eating as a kid, and a lot of you may find this nostalgic as well. So bagel bites, I remember those apparently came out in the 80s. Cool Ranch Doritos as well, and SpaghettiOs. It's alphabet-shaped pasta. You know, so. I was born in 1984. I was born in 1984. My early childhood was in the 80s, but a lot of the influence carried on into the early 90s. I have so much Aquanet in my hair that I didn't want to stand too close to the oven when these were cooking because, man, like, there's enough Aquanet in my hair to cause an explosion bigger than a meth lab. That's what they used in the 80s. Obviously, I'm not using Aquanet because I can't find any. Do they still sell that?
Introducing Aquanet Mousse. It's a mousse with the most. The most for your body. Get great body, great condition, great style, great control, no matter what the weather. Aquanet keeps it together. It's the most for your money. So Aquanet Mousse is the mousse with the most for your money. For your money.
Family meals I remember having in the 80s were like, I remember a lot of snack food, but I remember also like a ton of new snack foods were coming out in the 80s. But I remember eating things like meatloaf and sloppy joes. And sloppy joes, I was going to make that because that did become really big in the 80s, but I want to save it for my TMI story time.
Oh God.
So traditional meals people were eating in the 80s weren't invented in the 80s, you know? I think Hamburger Helper was. So yeah, 1984. I remember I like John Hughes movies. Those were big in the 80s. You know, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire. And just like the Nintendo. So much happened in the 80s. The Nintendo, come on. The original Nintendo. I remember playing that when Super Mario 3 came out.
Mario! Mario! Mario!
He's back. All you had to do was ask. Super Mario Bros. 3 from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
And Duck Hunt. Oh man, Duck Hunt infuriated me. I think I blame my current anger issues on Duck Hunt. That dog mocking you for missing. The 80s, of course, like any decade, had a dark side. If you read or watch the movie American Psycho, for instance, you'll get an idea of the whole, because in the 80s this whole yuppie persona came out. Very consumer-driven, materialistic-driven type of person.
As the upper class thrived under President Reagan's economics, the world began to take notice of yuppies, young, well-educated professionals with a penchant to spend and an obsession with image.
I always use an aftershave lotion with little or no alcohol, because alcohol dries your face out and makes you look older.
Inspired by moguls like Donald Trump, yuppies bought only the finest brands, drove imported automobiles, worked out endlessly, and invested in copious amounts of cocaine, at least according to the stereotype.
They don't have a good bathroom to do coke in.
The 1987 Wall Street crash killed the romanticism of the yuppie, but their stylistic influence lived on.
Yuppie drone.
The whole Wall Street materialistic kind of guy who's has a very shallow existence. You know, on the outward appearance, you're so put together. Everything is materialistic and perfect, and on the inside, you're empty.
On the inside, you're empty.
Profit. Wall Street.
Where we screwed up in the 80s is that we were all trying to get rich and famous.
Pounds. Dollar. Millionaire. Dollar. Dollar.
I believe that the supply side theory is workable. You're going to get a better economy, you're going to get more jobs, you're going to get a higher standard of living.
By God, in America, one of the great things about this nation is that we can seek profit. And I'm proud of that. If you can gain profit, that's even better.
People looked at these Wall Street characters and they said, I want to be like them. Money became a new drug.
Sometime in the 80s, we decided that the product of American business was profit.
I'm not going to argue that I want to make money. I want to win. And the bottom line was to win.
From the minute you're growing up, you're kind of told two things and they don't match. One, you're told that you have to be moral and just and all this kind of thing. And at the same time, you're told, grab it while you can, get it before the other guy gets it, and get rich as quick as you can.
We somewhere philosophically decided that if it's a rat race, it's okay to be a rat.
This is like something out of Dynasty. People have no idea what's going on.
Have you made a lot of money in your day?
Yeah, millions. One of my reasons for wanting to do the Diet Coke thing was, one, because it gave me loads of money.
I mean, I wouldn't mind being like, a rock star or nothing, but as long as rock star is defined as rich and rich.
One thing I love most about the 80s, and I'm so thankful that the 80s brought us. I know I look like the fat goth chick from South Park, okay? I'm going for a Madonna look.
God, she just never stops!
Oh, no. So the one thing is the 80s horror genre. Nightmare on Elm Street. Jason. I think Halloween was late 70s. The Shining, Sleepaway Camp, Night of the Demons, those campy, wonderful horrors, Basket Case.
If food don't kill you, the service will. The usual. Rick, you little meatball. I love soul food.
There's a lot of things politically. I don't follow politics very well. I was never big on political history. So, a lot of things happen in the 80s. I mean, I'm here for the food. Right? Because it's a food channel, but I'm more interested in the pop culture as well.
I loved the 80s because you could wear whatever you wanted. You could wear a man's suit. You could be as conservative as you wanted, or you could be as funky as you wanted.
The music. I love 80s music. Grew up listening to Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. But the thing I remember most is stealing. My mom had like a CD cabinet in the wall unit. And I used to comb through them, listen to them. And I took her Immaculate Collection, Madonna Immaculate Collection, and took it to my room. I don't think she ever saw it again. I used to lock myself in my room and just play it and make my own little music videos. Because you can't think of the 80s without thinking of Madonna. I mean, she had her whole own 80s style going on. She was very sexual. And as a kid, you're very curious about that kind of thing. Remember when she came out with her sex book? I think it was just called Sex. And bookstores were still a thing. And behind the counter, wrapped in shiny foil, was this Madonna book, Sex. And what I would have given to be able to get my hands on that as a curious growing person. As a curious growing sexual being. But now that I'm an adult, I don't think I've seen it. I've always idolized her and Tiffany. I think we're alone now. Cyndi Lauper. Duran Duran was my favorite. Tears for Fears. One of my biggest favorites. Aha, Take On Me, another iconic one. Doing these videos are super fun because I get to go back and just go back in time. Immerse myself for like a whole day. Alphabets! You ever try to spell things out? I was just too hungry to worry about it. I never played with my food because I was too busy eating it. I would never disrespect food that way. Diet Coke. Wash it all down. Yeah, in the 80s, a lot of fad diets emerged. I think that's where fad dieting emerged from, in the 80s. And they were focused a lot on low fat. Nowadays, we're focused on low sugar, low carb. But they were low fat. And so that, Diet Coke would become popular because 0-calorie beverage. Fad dieting was a thing.
Let's face it, you never felt that great after eating a box of cookies, did you? During, yes, but afterwards you always realized it just wasn't worth it. Nothing changed except your waistline and your self-esteem. Your waistline went up and your self-esteem went down.
I'm really glad that you guys enjoy these, and thank you for coming on this time trip with me back to the 80s and for having lunch with me. Excuse me. It was an 80s burp. All right.
They're doing it for the money. That's okay. Hey, I'm doing it for the money. But you're also selling out people who enjoyed what you did.